Good evening and welcome to The Core, coming to you live from Channels Television Studios in Abuja, Nigeria. My name is Kadria Ahmed. In Benue State, communities have been sacked, people killed, and children have become orphans. It is alleged that herdsmen are responsible. In Taraba's Mambila Plateau, similar carnage has taken place and generations have been wiped out. In some families, in these cases, farmers are alleged to be the culprits. Right across Nigeria, from communities in Zamfara, Adamawa to Edo and Ekiti, there are reports of conflict between armed farmers and herdsmen which have turned deadly, with loss of lives and destruction of property, mostly attributed to herdsmen. But are these reports accurate? And has the complete story of what is really going on in these communities been told? On The Core today, we will be exploring all sides of the story. But first, this report, which we put together after traveling through affected areas in Benue and Taraba states.
The people of Logo in Ugba and Guma villages in Benue State, and the people of Warwar, Kabri and Mbamga wards in Taraba State, the Mambila Plateau, have a few things in common. They have faced vicious attacks in the last few months, leading to the destruction of their homes, horrific physical injuries, and the brutal killing of their families and friends.
In order to protect myself, I climbed up a tree and hid myself. I watched my pregnant wife being slaughtered. Her belly opened up and my unborn child ripped out of her, killed and placed on the chest of my dead wife. I lost everything.
We were all sleeping. Then we heard screams, got confused. We stamped out. We saw a lot of other people trying to find out what was happening. I ran back in, woke my siblings, and we started running. The screams we heard, we called for help. Then heard a gunshot. That was how we ran to Anyin village.
The first person that shot was my brother. He was shot by one person who is called Namia. Mr. Namia, we met with him at the riverside. They shot him dead. Followed by my father, Alhaji Umaru Yandi, by my brother, Adamu Yandi, Adamu Doma Yandi, by my stepmother, Adama Yandi, by my uncle, Abdu Yerima Bode, my uncle, his son, Dahiru Abdu, and last, Yusufa Yerima Bode, the junior brother to my father. He himself, they met him inside the house, he escaped. They went and killed him behind the house. He's his teacher, he's a teacher. And it's the teacher that killed him, who is his colleague.
They cut my son's hands and legs, and the neck, raised him up, and the second was shot from behind, and bullet came out of his chest.
Another thing the Mbamga and Logo people have in common is that all of these victims claim that they had lived in peace for many years with the people they allege attacked them.
We used to live together in peace with the Fulanis, but we did not know why they have decided to start killing us. The Fulanis just want to bring problems.
They know us, we were in good relationship with them. They work for us, we have no problem with them.
In the past, according to them, the old conflict was usually resolved through dialogue and mediation by traditional and community leaders.
The courts are there, one, elders are there, the community leaders, and even to some extent some religious leaders. Whenever there are problems, we go to them, more especially the traditional council. All tribes are adequately represented. Whenever there's a problem, we go to them and they will resolve conflicts.
We have organized friendly football match between us and the Fulanis, after which 2 cows were killed and shared to no avail. No one touched any Fulani man's cattle.
This testimony is greatly at odds with the reality of death we saw in our travels. The suffering of victims was acute, the failure to get justice was evident, and the stench of impunity was everywhere. And it is not just Benue and Taraba states that have faced violent conflict leading to the death of many. In recent months, similar conflicts have been reported in Zamfara, Adamawa and Kaduna states. More worrisome is the nature of injury inflicted by the attackers, proximity of medical facilities to areas where attacks are carried out, and the time it takes for the cavalry to come in the form of first responders or security forces.
Within 4 days. It was more than 4 days.
It took 4 days.
It wasn't more than 4 days.
The response team to come here.
And then the mobile came here.
The response across the country, especially in the hinterland, is particularly not good. Okay? And even if we had a good response and the areas involved are not safe, do you expect emergency workers to go there? Even the policemen we are standing there are becoming cheap targets. So we must look at prevention first.
Some of them was taken to hospital in Cameroon, but they have recovered.
How far is the hospital in Cameroon?
From here to Banso is about 60 kilometers. Yes.
And how were they transported there?
They were carried on the head from here to the border side before they got cars and were taken to the hospital.
They were carried
on the head. By manpower.
By manpower.
Yes, to the border before
walked.
before they get cars.
States to the south have also reported conflict between farmers and herders. This, alongside the brutal Boko Haram insurgency, cult-like killings in Ikorodu in Lagos, and violent gang-like killings in River State, are perhaps the reasons why Nigeria is now ranked last out of 127 countries in the World Internal Security and Police Index. That is, behind countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, and Yemen, both of which are more or less embroiled in a civil war.
To discuss this conflict, I'm joined in the studio by Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Audu Ogbe. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. I'm also joined by the Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of operations, Mr. Taiwo Lakunasta. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Ms. E.A. Jonathan is the CEO of CESOR, an NGO that has been providing relief to victims of conflicts across Nigeria, in Borno, but more recently in Benue State. Thank you, ma'am, for coming to join us. And our last panelist is Dr. Saleh Momole. He's an academic who is also a member of the Kaduna State Peace Commission. Thank you for being part of this program.
Thank you very much.
Now, if I could start with you, Honorable Minister, we heard in that video that we saw communities that said, by and large, there was a degree of peace in the past between them, and little conflicts tended to be resolved using traditional conflict resolution mechanisms. We've seen an escalation. What, in your view, is responsible?
First, thank you for inviting us here. I think that there are causes which are beyond the control of any one of us here. Climate change, for instance. Once the dry season sets in, cattle begin to move southwards from the drier parts of Nigeria and even the surrounding West African countries in search of fodder and water. It's not unlikely that the numbers of herds are increasing by the year. Cows come in from Niger, Chad, sometimes as far away as Mauritania in search of grass, in the Benue Valley, stretching from Adamawa through Taraba and Benue before the river Benue joins the river Niger. These areas have water and a reasonable amount of green fodder for cattle to eat. And for the herdsman, water and grass are the key components in his management of cattle. Now, at independence, there were 56 million Nigerians. Today, we're close to 200. The cattle routes that existed in the First Republic are now blocked. This town in which we are today, called Abuja, Abuja was literally a highway for cattle traffic between the northwest and the southeast. Today, Abuja is a city, so the route is blocked. So cattle have to pass through, and then now they have to go into areas which ordinarily they wouldn't enter, which were farms and so on. And as they move on, sometimes in large numbers, there could be sometimes up to 1,000 or 2,000 cows in a herd.
Okay. If I may interrupt, you talk about this almost as if these are things that we did not predict and we didn't know were going to happen, and almost as if cattle run on their own without people, if you see, guiding them. And yet we know that it is people that own cattle. It is people who decide how to migrate from one place to the other. And governments, you would have thought, and ordinary Nigerians would know that these issues are coming up. I mean, climate change has been predicted for a very long time. So I'm still trying to understand why you see this as an issue.
It's an issue because as far back as the First Republic, we had what they called grazing reserves in northern Nigeria mainly. There were also ranches even in the southwest, southeast, what was eastern Nigeria. 415 grazing reserves were created by the First Republic management of then northern Nigeria. Some of them were as large as 28,000 football fields in one state. Somebody was thinking ahead. Then the coup of '66 came, and slowly nobody cared for these grazing reserves anymore. The water systems went under, there was overgrazing, and slowly, as populations grew, people encroached on these reserves. And so the cattle, there is no way a herdsman will stay in one spot if he can't find water and grass for his cattle. Now, successive regimes have talked about it. And we even, about 2 years ago, when I came into the ministry, I wrote to all the state governors saying we face danger and this crisis can only get worse if we do nothing. Can we have some land in your state where we create large reserves of ranches to keep these cattle and give them the grass, the water, the medication they need, and harvest the milk, and so on? Some replied positively, some said no.
Okay, so we now have issues of climate change and growing population. We have issues of policies that were not sustained. What else?
A bit of, shall I say, carelessness on the part of governance, that when the rains come, this crisis diminishes. It's in the dry season, it intensifies. And during the rains, it's time when we should prepare for when the crisis will come. We just have to reform the way we manage livestock production here.
Yeah, are you satisfied that these are the reasons for the conflicts that we're seeing increasingly between farmers and herdsmen?
I think there could be underlying factors, but I think the key thing is carelessness on the part of the government, with all due respect, is an understatement. People have died on both sides. We've watched the report, we've seen the allegations. We've tracked, at least since April 2013, we've tracked over 60 attacks in Benue. They have a certain predictability, and people die in large numbers.
So there's a warning mechanism in place, or
so
is
there's
it
a
that people,
pattern.
There's a pattern, right?
There's a pattern. So we know that these herdsmen come, they come in large numbers, drive people off the land. Of course, if they come attacking, you've seen, people run away. And then they sit there for some time and they graze. People have died. There's impunity. If they're moving in large numbers, we've been having reports about these things as far back as 2013. Even in 2014, there were suspected cases of use of chemical weapons in at least one community. Now, investigations sort of started and then they stalled. So on our part, yes, there are underlying factors, climate change. This is something the government that we've had a democratically elected government since 1999. So there's long-term planning that we hope goes on. What we see we see politicians come and go, but we also see those who form the civil service and who do the work, the administrative work. So there's the planning that should go into it. There's also the the law enforcement that needs to happen. If people are moving in large numbers, I mean, we know these things. There's enough technology around right now. We've got drones, we've got everything. We know this happens. Those things have been reported severally to the police and all of that.
Now,
so
I'd like us
be able to,
yeah, because we have situations where we get a lot of reports. This has happened and that has happened, and I think part of the failure, and we'll discuss this a little bit later, sometimes of the media, is to interrogate some of the information that they are fed. And so I'd like to turn to you, Dr. Momole, because I know you've done quite a lot of work around this conflict. Are we kind of certain and clear about the people that are attacking the people of Benue in particular? And we will take some of these conflicts one by one and try and get to the bottom of them, because I, in my travel, found that actually each conflict has like a different nature. But I'd like you to respond to her. They're herdsmen, they're coming to Benue, they're attacking, they're killing, they're grazing. Is that what you found out?
Well, maybe just to start from the more general perspectives, just to come, I think what the Honorable Minister says, are the long-term structural causes that have been taking place. But in the most recent years, you find out that there were three major developments. First of all, the structures of governance that were responsible for the administration of rural landscape collapsed. And those were the native authorities and the traditional institutions. These people were responsible for the governance of land, for the governance of forest, for the governance of water resources. Today, nobody is in charge of these critical land resources. So you expect to see collapse in the system. That is number one. Number two, the conflicts management and inter-community relations, those mechanisms that ensured harmonious coexistence between communities, also collapse in the wake of two interrelated developments. An intelligentsia that has failed to have a vision for Nigeria and which falls back into its micropism of its own ethnic and religious group at the very local level, and rather than supporting local communities to build partnership for development, to develop broad-mindedness, to have a national vision, they tended to narrow back their communities to see themselves as exclusive entities for which no other Nigerian should benefit anybody from that particular entity. And then at the second level, a community leadership that is devoid of the knowledge and wisdom of the governance of multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multi-resource user groups. The traditional institutions in the past, every village head, every district head knows every village within his terrain. He grew up in the village, he lives with the village, he knows all the pastoralists, he knows all the farmers, he knows the boundaries of the farm plots of everybody. But what we started to see from the 1980s into the 90s is retired elites of my nature who spend all their lives in the cities and maybe other foreign countries, coming back to take community leadership. And then they become like what we normally describe as tourists, because they live in the cities, they go to the village either on a Friday or on a Sunday to attend the church service, have 1 hour to listen to community complaints, and then to come back to the cities. Okay. So there was no governance. Okay. So it's the absence.
But it still doesn't explain why we have people killing other people.
Exactly. So what you find is that with these failures, there was a polarization of society. And this polarization of society is responsible for the carnage we are seeing now. If you offend me, I have no mechanisms for redress. If a pastoralist offends a farmer, he has no effective mechanisms for redress. And we place few institutions at a very critical stage. Now, who took over the management of this? It's mostly run back to the police. And the Nigerian police are not well trained.
Okay, so let me bring in the police right here. Yeah, because it's important that, I allow everybody to talk. This has to be a balanced conversation. It's really important that it is. You heard some of the things that the minister said, Dr. Momole said, but even more importantly, what Iya said regarding the pattern of attacks starting sort of from 2013 to date. Why have we not seen the police respond, for example, to these sort of issues, especially where it is clear that these things are going to happen again and again?
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Well, I will start from this angle. Definitely, it's worrisome and disturbing, all these incidents that we're having. Basically, what we do most of the time is either to be proactive or reactive. And if you look at the past, not that we have not been intervening, we have been having interventions. We have been having secret interventions. But sometimes, most times, it does not happen at the same place. Like what is happening in Benue now. When it happened previously in other areas, we intervened. And we sometimes
so why couldn't you intervene in Benue
we have
if
intervened.
you intervened in
before
other places?
You'll be very much impressed with the actions we have taken before we end this program. Because I'm here to tell you how far we have gone, but I won't go there now. And we are trying to tell you that so far so good, we always have intervention. Okay? Sometimes because of the nature of the terrain, because of the isolatory nature of the villages, sometimes it's difficult for police to react immediately. Because most times, the actions are always spontaneous. But once it starts, you will see us there and everything will, like what is happening in Benue now.
No,
we're encouraging people to go back.
Let me just take you back a little bit. We heard that because there's a pattern of attacks, many times you can predict these things that are going to happen. And so the idea that because they are far, you can't react, that means you're doing reactive policing. You're not actively...
You're getting me wrong.
Okay.
With due respect to you. I'm saying that these incidents do not happen at a particular place all the time. It happens, either it happens in Benue today or Adamawa tomorrow, so that we are extremely proactive. But when we have information, useful information, we react immediately. When you talk of incidents happening at the same time, like what is happening in Benue now, I'm assuring you that we're on top of it, and I'm assuring you that for a long time to come, it may not reoccur. If you look at where we are today, the stance, the actions we have taken so far, you will know that we are at our best. We have over 15 units of mobile men on ground. We have locked up the whole place. And what we are trying to do is confidence building, trying to bring the people back. Because of, like I said, the isolated nature of the place. Once in a while, we have incidents happen here or there. But we are there. You are aware that the IG was there for 1 week. The Inspector General of Police was there for 1 week. And with the DIG, is there right now. And we are, with time, let's continue with the program. I'm going to tell you the actions we have taken so far. Everybody will be impressed. We are on ground. If you call Benue right now, they will tell you that some people are even making efforts to go back.
Quickly, is that a satisfying explanation?
Sir, I was in Benue the weekend after the mass burial. And that was the weekend the Inspector General of Police was asked to relocate there.
Yes.
I saw him because I stayed in the same hotel.
Good.
I saw him for one night.
Yes.
Second night, didn't see him. I spoke to someone highly placed who there were now riots happening or some disturbances happening in Wadata.
Yes.
Around Wadata Makudi. It was so bad. You're aware of this. They chased people into the police station and people were taken. Thank you very much, sir.
106 suspects
at that point.
Okay, I don't want to get bogged into.
May I finish? But the point being that if you had people on ground, how is it such that people were even able to start threatening even the police station? How is it, sir, that you've said those places are isolated? What kind of intelligence services do you have on the ground in Benue that they cannot follow, as our Honorable Minister has said here, the course of the river, the course of the water? This is something we know. We know they follow the river in those attacks. So how come it is that we don't have the proactive? I beg to disagree with you, sir. It seems it is a lot more reactive policing going on.
And we are going to give him a chance. So we are going to give you a chance to respond, but we have to take a quick break. Don't go away.
The Fulanis that invaded the place came from outside, and they came for the purpose of doing the killings. So if you come to a place and you kill the owners of the land, what should be the logical conclusion? You want to take over.
You see, normally cattle and farmers will not meet. Cattle prefer eating the produce, and farmers will not allow that. They get their income from their farm. The Fulanis get their income from their cows. So the two will not meet.
When they come, they'll tell that they are coming to take over their land. It's their own land, their ancestral land. That the Fulanis here are non-aborigines. That they are said that they should go. This is what they are telling us. And I wonder how can somebody live in a place for over 200 years and come and tell him that he's not an indigenous of that place. I still blame it to the politicians.
The good, the bad, and the ugly events make our daily news. On Special Report, we dust it up and give it a fresh perspective through in-depth research and exciting interviews. Special Report, the news remains fresh.
Standing here, I visualize it all, from the past, the present, and the future. It all lies in the pages around me. Every flick lies information, a metamorphosis of a complex polity to gain on the system in some shape or form, be it recession, infrastructure deficits, security, or corruption. Every government arm wants you on their side. Call it a master's mastery, where the odds seem to win. I'll tell the story, your story.
Art from the heart radiates beauty of sound, sights, and emotions.
Oh, never mind what the people say.
There's beauty everywhere, even in the moves. They make for us a collage of stories you'd love. You call it Art House, and we say it's the proof of the beauty of life.
Welcome back. You are watching The Core, and we are discussing the herder-farmer conflicts in Nigeria. Now, you can join the conversation on our social media handles, Twitter at Channels TV or at Adria Ahmed, using the hashtag NGTheCore. We will do our best to take some of the comments of the people at home and make them part of this conversation. Now, before the breaks, you'd heard Miss Jonathan saying that she wasn't totally satisfied with the answer you were given. I want to give you a quick chance to respond, and then actually I'm going to start engaging the audience as well.
Yes, thank you, madam. What she was referring to was the incident that happened immediately after the burial of those killed during the mayhem. Of course, there was spontaneous reaction by the people, and they now started attacking here and there. We responded. We should understand the fact that when incidents like that happen, it's not something you just stop immediately. We were careful. We never used firearms. Okay? But what we did was to effect arrest. We arrested 106. It's on record. And the 106 were charged to court. They have been prosecuted. And, of course, that was what brought a normalcy to Makurdi.
Okay, so we sort of touched a little bit on some of the issues and the problems of this conflict. I'd like to start by bringing in the audience. And please, if I call you, could you say who you are before you make your comments? Maybe the gentleman in black, right in the middle there. Please tell us who you are, and then tell us what your thoughts are regarding the reasons for this conflict.
Excuse me. Thank you. My name is Chris Ngodo. I've listened to what everyone has said. It seems to me that there are secondary causes and primary causes. So in the long term, there are structural things like climate change, like unplanned urbanization, like overpopulation, and all of that. But in the immediate, I think we're also dealing with a culture of impunity that arises from the fact that the state seems to have lost the will and has certainly lost the capacity to police the country. It's a big country. We have close to 200 million people. We have a police force that is less than 500,000. It's almost unfair to expect that force to be able to cover the length and breadth of this country. It's simply not possible. I think we should modulate our expectations in terms of what our security services, particularly the police, which is the most neglected in the entire national security value chain. It's important that we modulate our expectations of what they can do or what we expect that they are capable of. So I think we are dealing now with a culture of impunity, and quite frankly, the state has also lost its monopoly of violence. The numbers that we are seeing, these are not criminal acts. These are small and medium scale intensity conflicts. That's what you're seeing. This is almost like a prelude to civil war.
Explain that, please.
I mean that if you have armed groups using assault weapons that storm communities, that displace thousands, that kill in the scores and in the hundreds, then that is not regular crime. It's not a burglary. This is guerrilla conflict. This is armed non-state actors engaging in very, very serious attacks against the state, against the way of lives of people. We are talking of whole communities being displaced. So I think that, hence, I think that the approach that the state appears to have taken is that of militarization, of simply militarizing law enforcement and essentially using the police almost as an afterthought, really.
Okay. Now, let me stop you there because I'd like to at this point, bring up the issue of, so when we talk about this conflict and whether there is the Benue one or whether the Mambila or whether the ones in Kaduna, you have a series of conspiracy theories that is very difficult to kind of decide whether they're actually accurate or not because of the nature of this country, people testing information, checking it out. So a few of them, for example, Benue or Fulanis are taking over and they want to take over our land, they want to run us over. At the same time, no, actually, the government of Benue is doing ethnic cleansing because it has chased out all the Fulanis out of Benue State. Then you have people who talk about ISIS and ISWAP and the fact that there's a Boko Haram, remnants chased out of Sambisa who are now heavily armed and they're going out. And then we are also not addressing fully the historical, ethnic, and religious tensions that have always existed. In your view, Doctor, and again, I come to you because I know you've done extensive work, research and academic study on this. Are all of this correct? And, or are they all wrong and is something else entirely going on?
I think substantially most of the opinions being expressed are out of context. They are not correct. They are manipulated by two sections, an elite and a political class that is narrow-minded, that try to promote very naive interests, and then a media that is not adequately informed and which is not interested in digging into the details of most of these issues. I think these are the major drivers. If you take, for example, all of this, if pastoralists, for example, not Fulani, if you take Fulani, they are entirely different. Throughout West Africa, pastoralism has been historically in West Africa for almost 700 or 800 years ago. Can you tell me from Mauritania up to the Central African Republic, into Zaire, into Sudan, can you tell me the pastoral land today that has been annexed by Fulani pastoralists? Can you tell me a territory that the Fulani have annexed either 200 or 300 years ago, and then they make it an exclusive grazing area and they do not allow any other person to live there? It doesn't exist throughout West Africa. So it's a historical fact that the Fulani are opportunistic users of resources, opportunistic users of land. That is what scholars, not only Nigerians, internationally have described the pastoralists.
Okay,
so they are not after land.
Okay, but
annexation.
And yet,
yes.
And yet, when we went to Benue, for example, we found at least one person who said to us, we were attacked, and the gentleman that led the attack was a Fulani man that used to live in this community and that we used to know. So are you totally dismissing the idea that Fulani people are attacking other communities, or what are you saying? I want clarity on this.
You see, I think the context in which we are talking is different. One is about land annexation. That was what I was talking about.
Okay.
So it's not the motive of pastoralists anywhere throughout history to annex land and hold it to themselves. It is clear on history. That is one. Number two, if you come back to these conflicts, let's take the very clear, simple example of what happened in Plateau. From 2001, when the Just Plateau crisis erupted, up to 2015, into 2016, when the underlying factors were addressed. Where are the violence? It has scaled down. So there are drivers. What is wrong is that but number one, the media does not interrogate. If you look at your reports for Benue, I didn't see any interview for pastoralists. So it's already biased. You could have searched for those Fulani that were part and parcel of those conflicts.
Okay.
That is number one. Number two, the same thing when you were on the Mambila. I could see footage of the Fulani talking. I did not see the footages of those people who they allege to have committed this thing against them,
Okay.
so that we can understand. And then finally,
No, no.
please, just to make this point very clear, wherever you see armed conflicts between two groups, the Fulani and the Tif in Benue are fighting and they are killing each other. The difference is that the information of the people, the Fulani people that are killed, is never released. The truth is never told. Just like we have seen the most recent, most recent
okay,
issue
I have to
in
bring,
Benue now,
I have to bring in
where
somebody.
all the stories have been tilted to one side.
Yeah, did you come across in your work, especially in Benue State, because I know you've done extensive work, did you come across Fulani victims? Have Fulani people been attacked in Benue?
We have had reports of people attacking in self-defense.
Right.
So there was a community right on the outskirts of Makudi.
Not reprisals, self-defense, because self-defense implies they are attacking the people who attacked them.
Absolutely.
Reprisal is if they attack you, you wait and then you attack another community that's similar to them.
In fact, the truth of the matter is, if it's what you call a reprisal, the truth is, from the people we talked to, they don't even know where to find them. For example, if there's anybody coming to attack, if people come in and attack en masse or whatever, what we saw in 2014 was we saw that the community said they came in, a bunch of Fulani people, shot in the air, killed. Interestingly, I think they said they killed an Igbo man. It wasn't even a Tiv man in that community in Adaka. And then the following day, they saw their cattle grazing, and they went and killed the cattle. Now, if that's a reprisal attack on cattle, fair enough. Unfortunately, because there has been back and forth, you have numbers running in over 1,500. These are just the ones that we've not even confirmed. Back to the point of documenting, I personally do not think it's the reserve or the job, primary job of the media to do these investigations. What is the government there for? Even civil society, we need to document some of these things as we talk about them, and we try and work facts. And that is one of the things we are calling on people. Let us start documenting. We cannot be going and saying, oh, they were reprisals. Where? How? Who? Or they came and attacked us, and then we did a mass burial, and we don't know where the people are.
Okay, so let me ask the Honourable Minister. She raised an important point. I happen to disagree with her about media should investigate because there's a role for media investigation. But she talked about government. Have you actually put anything in place that will look at this conflict and come back with hard evidence, hard information that will allow you to plan, not just in terms of policy, but also in terms of just policing for security purposes and all the other things that government is supposed to do?
You know, just July last year, we had a conference here. 700 people attended from all over the country. People knowledgeable on this subject of livestock production here. The problem is in government, even if you think you have a good idea, bring more people to participate because what you think will work may not quite work. Before then, I went to Yola. I met with the Lamido of Adamawa, who is an important leader of the Fulani. Spoke with him. He called me 300 herdsmen who waited in a hall. I had an interpreter. We spoke, and I asked them, what do you need from government? First, the Lamido said to me, you are probably the first high government official to come and show an interest in this matter. And I appreciate it. And when I spoke to the herdsmen, they said, listen, we too face a lot of danger. Rustlers kill us, snakes, hyenas, all kinds of things happen to us as we live in the bush, moving from place to place. Then I asked them, is it true that it's your way of life that you don't want to settle? They said, it's not true. If we have grass and water, and we have peace, and we are protected from rustlers, we will stay. Which is what I have always believed. I have been in agriculture for a while. I keep a few cows. I'm not large. You cannot keep cattle unless you provide for their feeding and their water. Now, so when we design these policies, implementation then becomes another issue. The federal government has no land. You have to ask states. So I wrote to 36 states plus FCT. Can we have some land since the grazing reserves have been bastardized and go into something modern to try and reform the system? 20 of the states either didn't reply or said they had no land.
Okay.
16 agreed.
But this is one of the crux of the issues when you discuss the herder-farmer conflicts, because people will say to you, why are herders special? Why should the government be looking to provide land for what is essentially a private business?
Oh, fantastic. Now, let me ask the same people. Why do we invest in cocoa farming? We clear land for cocoa farmers. We clear land for cassava farmers. We give improved seeds of rice to rice farmers. We protect and support sorghum farmers, millet farmers, sesame seed farmers, cashew nut farmers. There is hardly any sector, poultry farmers, that the government doesn't support. Now, people forget that the herdsman is also a farmer, except that his own way of farming moves him around.
Right, okay.
So,
let me bring in members of the audience. Yes, the gentleman in the tie, the blue tie. Please, you tell us your name and you make your comment. And when we finish with him, we go to the gentleman with the checkered shirt. Please tell us your name.
My name is Terence Vembe. I practice law for a living. I want to say from the beginning that if we are going to get any solution to this problem, we must be very honest in what we say. You asked a question at the beginning of the program. How do you know that the people attacking are Fulani? We know. On the 4th of March, and they are Fulani herdsmen, on the 4th of March 2016, the then IGP, Solomon Arashi, convened what he called a peace meeting in Makodi. I attended. And in Ado Bodere got up, that was after the Agatu attacks, got up and said they attacked Agatu because the people of Agatu killed 10,000 of their cows. Every time there has been an attack, somebody from the umbrella unions of the herdsmen, who are people living in town, who are not even in the bush with these people, come out to claim responsibility for these attacks. Even these January attacks for Benue. The vice president or the chairman of the Métis Cattle Breeders Association came out and said they attacked because they killed 1,000.
Okay, so it's important I say that these are allegations. We can't prove them, and so channels will have to be really careful about this, okay? But carry on. If you could stop mentioning names, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Because we don't want to find ourselves with a lawsuit in our hands.
I will provide my services as a defense lawyer. Now, for every attack, like I was saying, there has always been somebody out claiming to be the attack. There have been threats that we are going to attack.
We happen to have somebody from Mieti here, don't we?
And I'm talking about this, I can mention I've been involved in meetings. At a meeting in Baya, in Buruku local government of Benue State, we had elders of Fulani who came there and told us that as we are having children that we cannot control, that is how some of them are out of their control. They cannot control them. One has been physically arrested and was handed over to the DPO of Buruku police station.
Okay, let me bring
now. Sorry, and there's an next community in Benue State.
Sir, with all due respect, you made serious allegations. It is important that we allow a balanced conversation. At the beginning of this, I said it is important that we allow everybody to speak. Can I get the representative of Mieti Allah to respond to these allegations that have been made? He's somewhere here. Yes. So please, sir. And tell us who you are, please, so that just for the record.
Yeah, my name is Isa Idris. I'm an architect by profession. And 20 years ago, I was a headman. I used to move from one state to the other. But I was engaged to seek for education. And as a result, I'm an architect today. And I don't think somebody will now see me moving my cattle from one state to the other.
Yeah, but
so,
issues, yeah.
In response to what my brother has just said, first of all, I want to repute to completely say what he said about the chairman of Mieti Allah, whether they have taken responsibility of killing any soul in Benue State is not true. The Fulani herdsmen, as far as I know, they are very peaceful people. They move around in search of green pasture across the country. That's why you see them speaking all languages. If they go to various communities, they understand their languages. In fact, some of them even intermarry. So I don't think and know anybody that is Miete Allah Cattle Breeder Association has taken any responsibility or killing any soul, and we don't kill.
Let me talk about the elephant in the room that seems to be there, but that sometimes we never seem to address, and this is the historical distrust that seems to exist between what traditionally is called the House of Fulani and what are considered other minority groups in the north. Because when we traveled through Benue and to a certain extent even in parts of Taraba, what was clear was that there was a deep-seated distrust between communities. And I'd like to try and understand the impact of that on what is going on from the point of view. I mean, sir, you're sitting in a unique position because you work for the federal government, but you are from Benue State yourself. And so maybe you can talk to us about this and what you think the impact has been on the ongoing conflict.
Well, very quickly, first, there's been some suggestion that the January event in Benue was packed off by the law which the state passed. I must say that the killings have preceded that. It could have been angry reaction that a law was passed, but that's not to say that killings didn't happen before, because Agatu took place and other things happened before then. The big problem here with governance is that long ago in school, I used to read 2 European philosophers who said something about black people, that we have a chronic incapacity to anticipate the future, that we live for the moment. If this crisis is over today, we forget it. And yet I know, in the next dry season to get worse, because the herdsman is looking for grass and water, and he wants to keep his cattle. Unless we find a way to redesign this thing, and what the Prof said earlier is true. Local governments in those days collected jangali tax from the herdsmen, and the herdsmen were willing to pay. And therefore, conflicts were resolved, and so on. We haven't done much to prepare and organize this Department of Agriculture, which contributes 6% to GDP. Absolutely. We've done nothing, and as a result, the conflicts will go on. Of course, suspicions are there. Every word we utter is suspected. When I said, let's have cattle colonies, they said, it's colonization. It's used in biology to describe animal settlements. Bees, even gypsies in Europe are described as colony settlements of gypsies. The moment you say a word, the suspicion is everywhere. Religion gets in, tribe gets in, regions get in, and so on. And that is what keeps Africa from growing. Somebody needs to know. And I read a bit of history. Okay. Sultan Bello of Sokoto, 200 years ago, warned about this crisis we're having today, that someday this method of cattle rearing was going to create conflict.
Okay, and so let me ask this question, because again, like I said, our research shows that the conflict in Benue is slightly different from the conflict in Mambila. It's slightly different from the conflict in Zamfara, for example, and is also slightly different from the conflict in Kaduna. And so I'd like to start by looking at maybe the way we sort of reported, because we've got a few journalists here. The gentleman in the blue, yes, please, if you could give him the mic. How come this conflict on the surface seems to be reported as one conflict, as one large conflict, as opposed to multiple conflicts with nuances and things that are slightly different?
First of all, thank you for inviting
Please
me. My name
yourself.
is Musiki Lumajid. I'm editor-in-chief of Premium Times. You know, the doctor there, the teacher, talked about lack of capacity and, you know, the failure of the media to understand even the conflict as they are. So I quite, you know, in a way agree with him, because when you look at it, even we are not in a position to even investigate. We don't go to the field. Whatever we hear is what we report. Now, how come that we have just agreed that all the attacks are by Fulani herdsmen? Does it mean that all herdsmen in this country are Fulani? Now, there is even a danger, because it means that then criminals can come under and say they are Fulani herdsmen and commit atrocity. So it does appear that there is, a lot of work to be done by the media in reporting this conflict so that, we don't even scale up the conflict in the way we are reporting it. And a lot of people have been raising this issue about the need for the media to scale up its capacity to report conflict. Because, look, if we report and scale up conflict in our country, we all will be in trouble. So the way we've been reporting it is just a reflection of the low capacity with which we report almost all subjects in Nigeria, whether it is the economy, whether it is agriculture, we do superficial reporting. And, you can trace the reason for that deep down to the way
Which
we
in
are
your
trained.
view is what?
What did you say?
You said you can trace the reason. And
You can trace the reasons for poor reporting. Look, even you were trying the other day when you celebrated your birthday to train reporters across the universities. In fact, the universities, poor training of journalists, just like other professionals, and the kind of people we now bring into the industry to now report serious national issues. So with the way we report, then there is also lack of resources. For instance, when the Mambila attack happened, how many newspapers were able to raise resources to travel to Mambila? There are so many things. The Nigerian government itself has not realized that it has to help the media in a way to grow. For instance, the media is just struggling. Elsewhere, they are always fun to help the media to develop. If you have a strong media, a media that is capable, and then it will be able to report well, and then national development will be easier.
Okay, thank you so much. Don't forget, if you are at home, you can take part in this conversation. You can join us on our social media handle, Twitter at Channels TV, at Gadria Ahmed, and the hashtag is NGTheCore. We are also on Facebook and on Channels Forum. Now, on the issue of capacity in particular, one of the noticeable things we noticed once we sort of left the main cities, Makurdi, Jalingo, was the almost total absence of government in communities and the rustic nature of our communities and the fact that people virtually have to do everything for themselves. I'd like to sort of bring in the audience to ask, to what extent do you think this is actually stoking some of the multiple conflicts that we see in this country? Yes.
Total failure of local government.
Thank you. My name is Chido Onuma. I just want to quickly, in response to your question, to say what we see from all of the narrative, it's the irresponsibility of the state and misgovernance at every level. So the Honorable Minister talked about movement of cattle from as far as Mauritania, for example. You begin to wonder what's the state doing about it. The issue, Chris talked about the issue of security.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we're going to take a break, but I promise I'll come back to you straight from the break. Please don't go away.
Within 4 days. It wasn't more than 4 days.
You said 4 days.
It wasn't more than 4 days.
The response team to come here.
And then the mobile came here. I'm talking about the recent attack.
The one that took place.
The riot started, or the massacre, let me put it that way, started on the 17th of June to be precise. I was here in Groje. Practically, my hometown was practically under siege for about 3 days. The mercenaries came all over the plateau to march into Groje and massacre all the inhabitants of Groje, and the government did not respond. It took them for more than 5 days to send the security people here to come and rescue us.
Changing the narratives of our society begins with a question. The deeper you probe, the more revealing the issues are. So we hold institutions accountable by asking fundamental questions that steer us closer to the heart of the issue. That's what we do on Question Time, only on Channels Television. The world, they say, is a global village, aided by social media platforms and the World Wide Web, where stories break and trend on a daily basis. At Channels B, we use these platforms to track the trends and treat these stories with each side of the coin represented. Don't be told, be a part of the conversation on Channels Television. Usual or unusual occurrences, opportunities or challenges.
From 7,000, then bring 10,000. From 10,000, then bring 13,000. Am I breaking bread?
If it matters to you, shoot it, and we'll give it a frame on Eyewitness Report. Download the Channels TV app and start uploading your videos or photos. On Eyewitness Report, your story is just a click away.
Leaders around the world are always talking. But what are they saying?
And time to pursue a new deal that protects the environment.
Or we can look forward with optimism and hope, and to believe in the enduring power of the British spirit.
The privacy of a terrorist can never be more important than public safety.
Get in on the conversation. Watch Diplomatic Channel only on Channels Television. Imagine a world where fish eat plastic and the heat of the sun kills. Imagine a world where drought causes war and there are no elephants. This could be the reality, your reality. Still in doubt? Join the Earthfile team to explore the impacts of your action or inaction on your world at these times, only on Channels Television.
All this are not just the Earth's problems, they are ours as well. Which is why on Eco Africa, we show problems turned to solutions. Waste recycled and energy conserved. Unique initiatives to save the planet and us.
Welcome back. You are watching The Core, and we are talking about the herder-farmer conflict all across Nigeria. Before the break, we started a conversation about what role, if any, the absence of government in rural communities plays in stoking this conflict. And you were talking. So could you, just for those who are just joining us, perhaps reintroduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Chido Onuma. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I started by saying that part of the challenge is also the question of misgovernance at different levels. The minister talked about movement of cattle from as far as Mauritania. So you begin to wonder what's the state doing about it. But then you also look at the question of security. Chris talked about the percentage of policemen vis-a-vis the population of the country. You find a lot of our policemen carrying handbags for wives of honorable members.
And yet we seem to have a lot of paramilitary groups that we set up. So you have civil defense force, you have... Why can't everybody be merged into to become a policeman and for them to be supported properly? I mean,
well, I don't know. Maybe the AIG would answer that. But the question, I want to see a situation where we have proactive policing, intelligence, as when we started the discussion about there is a pattern. Some of these crises are there is a forewarning, and you begin to wonder why it keeps repeating itself. But my interest really is in solutions.
It raises the question about the will.
Yes.
Do you believe that there is a will to police properly? And not just you. Let me throw that to members of the audience. Anyone who wants to jump in? Someone who hasn't spoken before. The gentleman. Did you raise your hand, sir? Oh, yeah. Yes, okay. So if we could, I'm assuming you finished.
No, I have not. I have not.
Okay, quickly, and then I'll go to the gentleman.
I just wanted the issue of solution. I need the Honorable Minister.
We will talk about solutions. I don't want us to get a bit ahead of ourselves, because we need to sort of, I think if you don't diagnose a problem properly, the chances are you end up with the wrong solution. Right. So I wanted us to sort of get all that and then sort of end on the basis of how are we going to resolve this? And hopefully you will get a chance to talk at that point.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Kadria, my name is Emmanuel Bello. I'm from Taraba State. And my state has come in mention in the stories you've done. And welcome back from the Mambila Plateau.
Thank you.
One of the finest places, I'm sure.
It was gorgeous.
You've been to, weather, everything. It's a beautiful place. Sadly, the story that we get from the Mambila Plateau, like the one you covered, is that of carnage. People that have lived together over the years. Sadly, too, of reporting crisis in this country was that you do not just equate, or Taraba does not translate. The crisis in Taraba is not only reflected in what happened on the Mambila. Should have gone to places like Lao, places like Ukari, Ibi, Takum, all those places. You will have seen a larger problem, perhaps maybe bigger than what's going on in Benue. Sadly, the narrative again, and that's part of the problem. And I also speak as a news person. I've been editor of some news media, and I work with Mojid over the years. So yes, I can understand also the problem of reporting. Right now, even from your clip, you notice the direction of your story, and I think the prof was trying to say that. You see, on the Mambila, for instance, the other side too should have been spoken to. Of course, you have this limited time to do all of that, and we're doing stories, so sometimes in a hurry we do all this story. But Taraba has got a larger problem than maybe this clip was trying to put to it. And unfortunately, the narrative has been there to look as if Taraba is the aggressor and Benue the victim. But the truth of the matter is that for those who are also covering Taraba, know that we have a big, huge problem. And I don't agree that these problems are different. They're the same problem.
Yeah, in terms of the directions of the story, it's important to note that we spoke to communities that got attacked because we had a limited time and our interest was in victims because we thought a lot of politicians have been talking, a lot of NGOs have been talking, and we needed to hear from people who were directly affected. So in Benue, we went to people who were attacked. And in Taraba, the Mambila Plateau, we went to people who were attacked. So it's really important that we state that. But you need to sort of finish your point so that...
That was a good effort, I mean, for a reporter like me. I know what it means. But you see, like I say, in the Taraba story, it's not just completely reflected on the Mambila. It goes beyond that. And to get a robust view, which is what we are supposed to be doing, we must do that. But beyond that, quickly, let me add, because I don't know if I'll get any opportunities. Okay. We need to also, in the media, start asking the right question. Where are the herdsmen getting their weapons from? Okay. What is the role of leadership?
The question of who is benefiting economically.
Nobody has been arrested so far. And these are some of the problems we need to deal with. If we don't deal with these problems of crime and punishment, if we don't...
in Taraba, since you've brought up the question of crime and punishment, in Taraba, I saw a document written by the Attorney General of Taraba asking that people who were suspects in the killings in the Mambila be released on the basis that he had set up something of inquiry, some sort of commission of inquiry. And because the commission of inquiry was going to sit, his judgment was that arresting these people would make the job of the commission of inquiry difficult. And part of the difficulty was in trying to understand how people who've been accused of a murder could be let go on the basis of a commission of inquiry.
Well, that's a legal thing, and I think over the weeks and in the coming days, people are going to look at the legality of all that, or the Attorney General writing, the police, and I think I've had this argument elsewhere. But we must also focus and look at the larger picture. This is no longer just a Taraba problem or a Benue problem. This is a problem that I think almost everybody is talking about it all over the world. there is this talk. And unless we begin to isolate places and look at the larger picture and look at the problem of criminality, how are people getting weapons? How are they getting to the places? Why is that there's no prompt response? Why is that a governor will say, we're going to be attacked, and then you don't find any serious response? Okay. If we do not deal with this issue and we begin to look at tiny bit of the issues, we're not looking at the larger picture. At the end of the day, we'll have a bigger problem. Okay. And this is how Boko Haram became actually a huge problem.
Yeah, and I've had an interview with the governor that I'd like to run. I spoke to the governor of Benue State, Mr. Samuel Otom. I started by trying to dissect the anti-grazing bill that was put up by the Benue State Assembly and has now become law. I started by asking him specifically, why is it that under that law, one would only get a 1-year lease for ranches?
Of course, a law is meant to guide people on what to do. If you go to acquire land from this agency that deals with waterways, inland waterways, for instance, you are also given lease for 1 year, but it's renewable. And this will not stop you, taking into account whatever you invest there. Once you have the permit, you will remain there. And others who have taken to this are doing their business here very well. It is going on.
So you don't see it as being problematic that people will get a lease that's renewable every year? Do you not see how this might discourage people who will require, investing a lot in property if they know that their lease could be revoked after a year?
Well, the thing is, if you want to do business here, that is the law that we have provided. And you're free to either choose to do business here or somewhere else that is more friendly to you, depending.
The question, though, I'm asking is, what was the thinking behind making it 1 year? Was there anything in particular that made you believe you couldn't give longer leases? Why 1 year?
Well,
why not 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
This law was subjected to public hearing, and people made input. It wasn't just I sitting and making a law and signing. It went through a process. It was an executive bill that went through the State House of Assembly. The State House of Assembly did public hearing in the 3 senatorial districts and finally did it in Makurdi. So 4 designated places in Benue State, public hearing was done. And people made input. So it is not that I sat down and decided to write the script. It was from the public, and they wanted it like that, and so we accepted it.
Now, Section 12 also seems to prohibit people from selling their land to those who may want to purchase it outright in order to set up ranches. Is this understanding of Section 12 that I have accurate?
Well, of course, people are not supposed to sell land, of course. The Land Use Act talk about giving land for a period of time. So you're not even supposed to sell land in the first place.
So basically, nobody is allowed to come and buy land in Benue State. I want to sort of clarify that and be absolutely sure that I am correct. Unlike a place, say, like Abuja or Lagos, where I could go and buy a piece of land off somebody who's basically inherited it from their grandfather or something like that. Obviously, within the context of the Land Use Act, you are saying in Benue State, people are no longer allowed to sell their land even if they want to.
What we are saying is in Benue State, we do business just like any other place. People buy land for businesses from other people. You're free to do that. But in the case of ranching, when you're given permit for ranching, you're not allowed to sell it.
Why?
Of course, that is a law. Like I say, it
all
went
laws
through.
Tend to be put in place for a certain reason. When you put laws, like you've explained to me, the open grazing law, for example, you believe the reason you needed it was to bring an end to the conflict that was going on and that was leading to a loss of lives. So every law and sections of laws normally tend to be put together for specific reasons. Why did the Benue State government decide that every other type of land can be sold but land that is for ranching, they're going to prohibit people from selling it. Why are you interfering with private enterprise?
Of course, like I said, laws are meant to regulate the activities of the people, depending on what they want. And for us in Benue State, we prefer that land meant for ranching, which are leased, should not be sold.
But you can't tell me why.
What is the explanation? It is for, it is not meant for any other business when you have the permit to do ranching.
Is
so
it because
you do your ranching.
Do you assume that the people who would be in a position to buy land for ranching are Fulanis, and therefore, or herdsmen, and therefore you don't want them buying land in Benue? Is that why that particular section was put in?
No, the law is not talking about Fulani. It's talking about those who want to rear cattle. So everybody is free. It doesn't. We're not talking about ethnic groups or ethnicity in this law. We're talking about those who are into cattle business. In fact, it is beyond cattle business. It's about livestock business. So it can be pigs, it can be goats, it can be sheep, all types of livestock. So it's talking about prohibiting livestock from roaming about.
Now, you know, of course, that there have been allegations and even a few people paraded before the press that have been tagged Benue militia, and you've been accused of arming people to attack herdsmen. What is your response to these allegations?
You know, that is a clever way of trying to divert attention from the main issues that are on ground. Those people who are accusing me should come out and show me the evidence of where I have armed people. When I came in 2015, I organized an amnesty program that asked for voluntary return of weapons that were in the hands of people illegally. And I recovered more than 700 rifles, which I handed over to Presidential Committee on Small and Light Weapons. And they were destroyed in the presence of the security agencies in Benue State. So how do you turn around to say that I'm arming people? And the truth is that it is a way of diverting attention from the main issues when they know that they are not doing their duty.
Roughly, how much money do you spend on sort of your personnel bill? So this is salaries for staff in Benue State.
Of course, until this January, we had a wage bill, including pension and overheads of 7.8 billion naira every month.
Okay, so
but
the total...
we have reviewed that.
Mm-hmm.
We have reviewed that, and we are now paying 5.8 billion naira.
So the 51 that was in your budget is for what exactly?
That is overheads.
Right.
There are several other things to do. Apart from payment of salaries, you do other things too.
Okay. In 2015, that same number was about 33 billion. So we've seen an increment of close to 20 billion between the time the last government left office and today, in terms of those wage bills, this budget that we're talking about.
Yeah, there is budget, but the reality is also there. You can have a budget.
I'm talking about the actual here. I've got the numbers, I'm looking at them. And the point I'm trying to make is that part of the allegation that a source that I spoke to made is that actually the reason there's been an increment, a huge increment between the last government and your budget keeps going up. When you first came, we went from 33 to 45 to 46, and now we're at 51, is because you do have a militia and you are arming them. And these are the people that you're using that money for.
You cannot assert that because there is no record anywhere where Benue State is arming any militia. If you talk about militia, you know where it is. The Inspector General of Police knows where this militia came. If militia existed, they were there before I even came. And when I came, I did an amnesty program. First of all, using the carrot approach, we saw a return of a lot of weapons back to us here in Benue State voluntarily. And we even paid a token on them. And the second one we're currently pursuing now is the stick approach. These two, the law enforcement agencies are going forcibly against those with illegal weapons and collecting them. And if you talk about we sponsoring the law enforcement agencies, that I will agree, but there is nothing like arming and sponsoring militia here. Rather, we succeeded in disarming a lot of people here. You never quite answered the question on why your profile, your spending profile has become so much higher at a time when you are actually not even paying salaries in full. I'm still trying to understand why the numbers have climbed from the last government and successively through the years since you took office. The number has not climbed. I have told you, when I came here, the wage bill I made was 8.2 billion. I'm looking at your budget as presented in public, and also I cross-checked these numbers with Budget 8, which, you know, sort of is a very respectful organization. In 2015, the actual spend on personnel was 33 million, a little bit over 33 billion. In 2016, when you started, it became 45, which is an increase of almost 7 plus 5 is 12 billion. In 2017, it was a little under 46 billion. And this year, by your own numbers, and we took this from your website, it is 51 billion. That of course, let me tell you, maybe let me tell you what has been happening. The truth is that when we came in, we inherited over 69 billion arrears of salaries and pension and gratuity. This we've been paying over the years, and over 70 billion contractual agreement. But we had over 69 billion arrears that was pending with government. And we've been offsetting some of this over the years. And maybe that is what is causing the increase you're talking about. Otherwise, everything we did, we have been very prudent as far as we're concerned here. Okay, so let me ask you, given that the information or the story out there is that these herdsmen are armed, they are attacking communities in Benue State, they're seeking to overrun the place because they are in search of land, and they're basically looking to do a land grab. How come out of the 24, I think it's 24 local governments in Benue State, we have only maybe 23, sorry. Out of the 23, there are only maybe 2, largely dominated by Idoma, where we still have herdsmen. And the rest of them have largely left Benue State. Who chased them out of Benue State? They left themselves. Like I said, the Lord makes provision for ranching. So where you think that you cannot confine yourself to ranching, you are free to go to other states. That we have said it. But that is Mr. Governor, sir, with all due respect, that is at odds with the character of the herdsmen that have been painted. We are told these herdsmen are murderers, they are armed. These are not people who just live on their own. That's not the character of somebody who will voluntarily leave because you've told him you have a law. If they are armed, they are dangerous, they are killing people, and they don't like the law that you've put together, it does not add up that they will willy-nilly just quietly slink away and leave Benue State. Of course, nobody chased them. I am telling you, I'm on ground. You're in Abuja there. I'm telling you what is happening. I have traveled around the area to fine, then come yourself and see things for yourself. Because they had the intention of killing people and taking over the land, they left to neighboring states. And they are launching the attack from these places. I want to know whether you have confidence in the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari
and the ability and his ability to protect you and the people of Benue State, and the ability of his government to protect you and the people of Benue State, in light of the issues that you have said are taking place?
I have confidence that he can do it. That is why I invited him to come to Benue State and see things for himself, but not listening to the Inspector General of Police and the Minister of Defense, who are not ready to take these issues headlong and give him a feedback.
Okay. Welcome back. I was speaking yesterday to the governor of Benue State, Mr. Samuel Otom. That was the interview you heard there. Now, a few issues were raised in that interview, yeah, and I'd like to come specifically to you because he's the governor of your state. Specifically, some of the issues around ranching. Are you satisfied and happy with the way the law has been crafted? Do you think it has been designed, in your view, to mitigate this conflict long term and to actually ensure that those who want to ranch sincerely are able to ranch and farmers are therefore allowed to get on with farming the land?
I think some of the lawyers in the House can speak to that better than I can. I can speak to it from the civil society perspective. To be honest, I'll be very honest, I actually feel for my governor. He is between, for want of a better phrase, a rock and a hard place. I think if we all followed how this law came into place, the truth is, as far back as 2013, we know attacks had been happening before then. And the people, frankly, got tired. And they were tired and felt that government, as the gentleman in the audience said, at all levels, had not responded in the way that they should have responded. People say this is a party thing, is one party, is another party. In the previous administration, there were allegations then that the government at that time in Benue was not responsive enough to those attacks. I remember even criticizing a government official who should have been in his position for taking off to Abuja when he should have been there responding to certain things. And of course, his own officers got back to me, but there you go. But the issue is that the people now got tired and started pushing. I remember, for those who remember clearly, I think in 2016, there were demonstrations actually in Makudi by the people that this law should be passed. So after due consultation, as was said, I even remember when the public hearings were had, I remember people were not happy with the first draft and kept insisting that certain provisions should be made. Unfortunately, I do not remember some of those provisions that they had insisted, oh, this is looking like it's favoring those who come in and then eventually come back and attack us. I remember there was that statement made by certain persons in the public. These are people whom we should not forget, even as we interrogate this crisis. We have lost over 1,500 people, just in Benue alone. Again, on the other side, assuming from everything we've heard, people are also dying from the herdsmen. I was talking to an elder in my place. He was upset also with the elite of the people who own this cattle because it's back again to lack of governance and lack of opportunities for our people. We send out these people, or the owners of this cattle, send out these people to go into those bushes. Some of them have children.
Okay, so there's an assumption here that the people who are herding are not necessarily the owners of the
From some of the
cattle.
Investigations we did in 2014, I think those who are owners here can maybe attest further. From some of the investigations we did, we understood also back to governance, back again to an elite, a political elite, and even sometimes a business elite that is not responsible and should be held responsible for these killings, is that there is a lot of money pumped into this. Some of the communities we went to, they said, those people that came in Tiv, they will say, they will say, it's not the normal Fulani we know. These ones came, they had weapons. In some instances, some alleged there were people from outside of Nigeria who came with these weapons, accompanied maybe by one or two Fulani headsmen they knew from before.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there. We will carry on because I have to take another quick break. We are talking herder-farmer conflict on the core. Don't go away. We'll be back very shortly.
Some people with us also could identify the attackers were Fulanis. We took a good look at them. My elder brother's son identified one of them. His name is Danka.
Indigenous group?
They are indigenous, the people of Bang Tirikona, the people of Bang Down, the people of Leng, the people of Lip, and the people of Sam.
That's where they come
Yes, they all came and gathered at their village head house before they start moving to our village. They burned so many villages on the route before they came here. This man also, their houses was burned, and about 9 people were killed.
The world, they say, is a global village, aided by social media platforms and the World Wide Web, where stories break and trend on a daily basis. At Channels B, we use these platforms to track the trends and treat these stories with each side of the coin represented. Don't be told, be a part of the conversation on Channels Television.
In every show, we bring you closer to the fastest growing movie industry in the world. From the making to the premiere and the awards. Get up close and personal with the stars and industry captains, plus reviews and much more. Nollywood Uncut, every week at these times.
Welcome back. You are watching The Core, coming to you live from Channels Television Studios in Abuja, and we're talking about the herder-farmer conflicts in Nigeria. I'd like to quickly take a few comments from people at home. Dr. Anmuyiwa says, I'm disappointed that the minister is talking about creating ranches for herds. This is a business. Who gives lands to tailors? Who gives lands to artisans to move from place to place and work? In 2018, herdsmen cannot roam other people's lands like vagabond. Fahad Shehu says these farmers and herdsmen crises are all political because these kind of crises are usually settled with the aid of traditional rulers. Sonny C says, why is the federal government of Nigeria so much interested in the cattle business? Is this not personal business? Has the FG shown this kind of interest in other businesses before? Mustafa Bukar Kiri says politicians have politicized this situation. What Nigeria needs now is to come together irrespective of ethnic and religious differences and dialogue for a lasting solution to this issue. And we will soon, go on to start talking about solutions. But quickly, before the break here, you were responding to that interview specifically that I had with the governor regarding the bill that was passed in Benue.
Yes, so I think the bill was passed in response to the people's desire. And the efforts to implement it were in response to the people's desire. The people even questioned if the government was ready to fully implement it the way it should be implemented. And they kept referring to Ekiti State as a prime example of that bill. We appeal...
You do know in Ekiti State, though, the bill doesn't ban open grazing. It bars it from 6 p.m.
From what we understand...
No, I've seen the bill.
No, from what we understand,
yes,
with civil society and people we talked with, they just felt that the way the entire process had been handled in Ekiti, in terms of implementing whatever bill they had, that was the kind of firmness
that they wanted to see.
That they wanted to see, because they felt previously that hadn't been there.
Okay, I want to start talking solutions, and there's a lot of people in the audience that want to talk, but I want to bring in the policeman first, just to ask him, what are you doing regarding just securing these areas where there's conflict, specific things?
Okay, I'll start from this note. You see, it's so unfortunate that most of the time our efforts are not being appreciated. The gentleman there made mention of something, that journalists do not conduct investigative journalism. We have helicopters. If they want to come along with us, we'll give them a ride. Right there and then, you're all aware that the Inspector General of Police visited Benue. He was there for 1 week plus, and all he did there was to hold a series of meetings with interested parties, with communities, and even with that, he was still giving directives to policemen on ground.
Okay, so but what specifically, because we have to be conscious of time,
Madam, we have
specific things that you're doing.
You should allow me to talk so that members of the public and those watching will appreciate us.
I understand. When the program finishes, you will have a chance to talk.
I appreciate that. Right now, we have 5 units of mobile men on ground. 5 units, of course, a unit consists of 63 men each, covering from Logo down to Ukum. That is the coastline of River Niger. Our men are there. They've created buffer between the border and the other states. Apart from that,
realistically, how long can you keep them there?
We will keep them for as long as we attain peace there. We have the capacity.
And the other areas?
We have the capacity. We have problems all over the country, and our men are there. In Kaduna-Jere Road, our men are there on ground. We have 600 men there with 80 patrol vehicles.
Okay, so deployment, what else?
We have deployment there. Then when you talk of deployment, it's good I mentioned those that we have deployed. We have our intelligence assets there. We have aerial assets, 2 helicopters flying. And of course, we have, like I said, intelligence assets. We have our technical components. We have a team called Special Forces. These guys were trained in Belarus. They were even assisting the military men at Sambisa Forest. We have to recall some of them to join you people there. Okay. So that's why I said for now, there's appreciable peace. And we are encouraging people.
And yet, the governor of Benue State says he has no confidence in your IG.
I don't want to join you with the governor. I'm telling you perceptively what is on ground.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me go quickly to the audience. Okay, we're going to do this really quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll see how it goes, yeah? So the gentleman, no, please, the gentleman here in front. Then the one next to him, then the last 2 gentlemen here. We'll have to be really short and quick, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Aliyu Tilde. I'm a farmer and a journalist at the same time, sort of. I don't think we will get out of conflicts of this nature if we do not control our unruly youth. Whether it is Boko Haram, whether it is Ghana's militia in Benue, whether it's whoever, you find that the crises are generated by youth. They are unruly. They want to attack people's property.
Young people.
Young people.
Why?
Youth.
Why?
They don't have jobs. There are so many. They are not well educated. And even if they are educated, they don't have jobs and so on. So we have a lot of fodder on ground.
Okay.
So that is one. 2, now you have peace in Benue, peace in court, because the Fulanis have been evicted. As you have rightly said, it's only in 4 local governments in the Idoma-dominated regions where you have some Fulani left. And even that, there is a lot of pressure on the local government chairman to evict them.
Okay.
Now, thirdly, on the perception
you
that...
You have to be really quick.
Thirdly, on the perception that ranching is the solution. Ranching is not the solution. Ranching is a problem in sub-Saharan Africa.
Why?
I have a ranch at home. I keep my own the cattle at home, and I know what it costs me.
So,
but I don't know any ranch in Nigeria.
You're surely not suggesting
yes.
that in this day and age,
yes,
we should allow cattle to just be roaming up and down.
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. For ranching, you need an environment that is amenable or that can allow ranching. In sub-Saharan Africa,
so if ranching is not it, roaming is not it, what is it?
No, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture has said it. We have had grazing reserves.
And colonies, okay. And I can get
these
him...
reserves are there. These governors need to reactivate these reserves.
Okay.
So that
I really need you to give the microphone to the next person. We will come back to him to talk about this reserve since he seems to do. I need to get as many people in as possible.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abdurrahman Usman Lemi. I am from Mambila Plateau. Quickly, you all have mentioned some of the causes of this problem, and which are mostly global problem. You talk about population explosion, you talk about desertification, but we are now discussing this because there was a conflict, and we are not going to talk about these issues unless we address what this gentleman said here, the culture of impunity. Like where I come from in the Mambila Plateau, where these attacks happened in 2017 recently, there have been 4 major attacks from 1982 till date. But these people are known by the communities, they are known by their community leaders, they are known by their victims. So if we don't allow
impunity,
if we don't allow the police to carry out their duties and arrest these people and prosecute them, we will not get to the bottom of this, because people will always come up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Impunity is an issue. So please let me go to the gentleman in the yellow over there, and then the gentleman.
Thank you very much.
Him, and then
my name is Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired. I just have a few comments to make. I will address first
one comment, please.
Okay. Well, in that case, honest, what concerns me as a citizen, I have seen highly irresponsible statements from political leaders, from religious leaders, from traditional rulers, and I think this is highly regrettable. They are sending the Nigerian citizenry to be born into this conflict while they rest in their houses. That's all I have
so
to say.
Irresponsibility on the part of leadership, sir. Yes, behind you.
My name is Joseph Lengman, and I am the Director General of the Plateau State Peace Building Agency. Unfortunately for me, I'm not so upbeat about the prospects or the potential of finding a sustainable solution to this problem, because the issues that underlie this debate has been too emotive for a systematic analysis of the issues in terms of the causality, in terms of the actors, in terms of their preferences even for transformation. And to address a problem, a complex problem of this nature, it is very, very important to have a broad-based consensus in terms of our appreciation of the problem first. And I think to a large extent, that's the reason why we've not been able to make any headway in terms of a solution to this problem. And let me just say this, please.
Please, you need to hurry.
Yes.
I have to be able to balance this conversation.
Absolutely.
So people from across need to be able to talk.
I agree with you totally.
And I have very little time
Absolutely.
left.
So it's very important that we think of the other components that would actually help us in getting to a solution to this problem. How do we repair the broken social fabric of our society?
Okay, so
I think that is one area that has not actually been touched.
That's a good question. Who wants to try and tackle that? There's a gentleman here. If you have spoken, I'm not going to allow you to talk until everybody who has not spoken has spoken. So there are 2 gentlemen here. Very quickly, please. Can you pass them the mic? Because I'm coming back and finishing with my panel on solutions. Time is going quickly. I know it's 2 hours, but it's gone so fast.
Thank you very much.
Your name, please.
My name is Ario Daria Toye. I'm from Ekiti State.
Something very important came out from this place. This man here, sorry, with all due respect, he said was a herder and now better educated, no longer moves his cow. Very important. Now, that means that there's what we call the elitist conspiracy even within this issue we're talking about. Secondly, when President Obasanjo was there, an OPC issue came out. He didn't vacillate. He responded. Jonathan went to the creek. Now, President Buhari, remember, in 2001, went to Oyo State over this issue. Now, as the president, I don't think there should be issue allowed grandstanding on the part of some, probably maybe Fulani leaders. It is his responsibility to know that supremacy should not be allowed in this conflict. He should tackle this because vacillating over this issue, not willing to talk about even the Mieti or to call them to order or to have meeting with them. All this while we're talking about now. We've been mentioning them. People, the media have been saying it, not willing to, even have a meeting and telling them that, look, I am the president. Supremacy, ethnic supremacy or tribal supremacy should not be allowed in this issue. Okay. We just have to solve those problems.
Thank you, sir. There's a gentleman behind you that wants to speak as well. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. My name is Okoyemi Orinio. I'm a development practitioner and analyst, and I've worked on projects within the agriculture chain, like some of the projects that Dr. Mawale has worked on. I think what I want to point out here is that we're reactionary people, and we have a reactionary government. If things do not get volatile, we do not think there is need for us to even pay attention to them. So we have a social justice issue on our hands that reveals information around how we police ourselves, how the country is structured. We don't need to window dress the issues like the AIG here. We don't need to window dress it. We are under-policed. We don't have an effective policing system. Okay. Secondly, we have a socioeconomic problem. We need to always not politicize all the issues. Fulani herdsmen, like the Honorable Minister said, it is an economic activity, and the government is providing incentives for all of the economic activities. So why not from that issue? So we need to be pragmatic. We can't be digging our legs in the sand. Okay.
Finally, the gentleman here who's been raising his hand, the two of them, and then I'm coming back to close it. This one here and that one there. Start with that one there. This gentleman, yes. No. He's spoken already, this gentleman.
Thank you very much. My name is Husseini Abdul. I'm a development practitioner. Thank you for this. I think one of the major challenges we're experiencing is that we have been conflicting, or there's a mixture of these very important economic issues with our identity politics in the country. And that is making it very difficult to respond to the situation. Second, on ranching, it's important to ranch, but we shouldn't take it as an ultimate solution to the problem. Okay. The government, let me just tell you this. The colonial government, as far back as 1914, had a ranching policy that lasted up to 1931. Okay. That ended up becoming a crisis.
Okay. And it's important that you understand, if we run out of time without getting all the viewpoints, I will be accused of bias. So please, let's get as many people in.
Before I came here,
yes,
I tried to actually look at what is happening across Africa.
Sir, who are you, please?
My name is Abubakar Sadiq Mohammed. Okay, those who are talking about ranching are deceiving Nigerians. All the ranches, most of the ranches in Africa have failed. In Nigeria, we tried ranching. It failed also. One ranch in Tanzania ran for 40 years. It was closed down only last year. The literature is there for everybody to...
So the frustration is this. I think are all generally agreed in this country that the time has come.
Let me finish. There is something we are doing wrong.
I need to clarify these things so that you answer the question straight, because we don't have too much time.
Yes.
Generally agreed in this country that we may no longer be able to sustain this open grazing. Ranching has been suggested. You say it doesn't work. What is the solution? I'm interested right now in solutions on the things that don't work.
In the whole of Nigeria, we have 19.5 cattle.
Million.
19.5 million. Ethiopia has 50 million. And they practice transhumance. And if in Ethiopia, they could manage pastoralism successfully. In fact, pastoralism contributes 45% of the total GDP of Ethiopian agriculture.
Minister, your ranches are not going to work.
So something is not, we are not doing the right thing.
Okay, so I take that point. The ranching is not going to work. it sounds like the colonies might not also work. They seem to be suggesting that you need to... Sir, please, with all due respect, please, can somebody take the mic? Thank you. Okay, so ranching won't work, according to the people who studied this, which means your colonies might not work either. And the suggestion seems to be some sort of route for open grazing that is sort of put together. Is that something you are considering at all?
That is a recipe for more chaos. 3,000 cows marching one night. I was in Castina with the governor. And somebody ran to him and said, 3,000 cows just came in from Niger Republic. And he said, send the police to stop them. Where are they heading? 3,000 arrived, moving south. It's very nice to say ranching won't work. They won't work because they were not well managed. It's not enough to cut out an area and say it's a grazing reserve. Grow the grass. When I became minister, I talked about grass. I was insulted on the social media. Oh, he's useless, he doesn't know. You cannot keep cattle without talking of fodder for them. Yes. And growing fodder is a business. The largest single dairy farm in the world is in Saudi Arabia, the Almeida farm. 130,000 cows. They bring grass from Argentina. The cows are in air-conditioned compartments. They just produce milk. We have to ranch or wait for anarchy.
Okay, so the position of the government is that's the way to go.
That's the way to go.
The federal government. Okay, sir, hold on. Let me, please, yes. please.
Minister, I'm saying, as I'm coming. No, not against. I spoke of cattle colonies. You know why? 19.5 million cows. If you have to have a ranch, on the average, I don't know how many cows you have, probably 300. Managing 300 cows is a headache. Now, if you have to have a ranch for 19.5 million cows, you need 633,000 ranches in this country. An average of 1,711 per state.
And so your
Do you have space for
suggestion
that?
does what exactly?
So I said
Please,
a large conglomeration of ranches in one settlement, which I call a colony because of economy of scales. Water, grass, security, because the herdsman is also in trouble with rustlers. Because I asked them, why do you carry AK-47? Before now you had 6. He said, because rustlers also kill us at night and match away our cows. But leaving them with guns is not the answer.
Okay, 16 states that have told you they are willing to cooperate with you. What's the plan?
Well, in fact, as at yesterday, about 4 of them have already started clearing land, and people from NAPRI's area, which is the National Animal Production Research Institute, are already joining hands with us. You've got to grasp the place, and you have to hand them to professional management. But in India, they have feed mills for producing food for cattle from agro waste. Exactly. And even cassava leaves.
Okay.
Now, these are new innovations we have to add, or cows will just, either we banish cattle from here, or we just, yes.
Okay. Even in Britain, where you went, I was at the conference you were talking about,
yes,
where we were showing pictures of ranches in Great Britain.
Yes.
Last year, Great Britain imported feeds for their cows, 899 million pounds.
Yes.
That's what they spent in importing food for their own cows.
Because they have no land to grow grass.
Because they have ranches. Now, the point is that in Nigeria, it cannot start overnight. It cannot start, that's the point I'm saying.
Okay, but it has to start. We are going to have to take a break. We're going to have to go. Sir, we have to go for a break. You don't have a mic anyway, so no one can hear you. So let us take a break. And when we come back, we'll try and conclude this and be fair to everyone. Don't go away.
The law, its intrigues, drama, and sometimes confusion. We break them all down on Law Weekly.
We have sufficient infrastructure to give effect to the laws, but there's simply no political will to do so.
Ignorance is no excuse. Join the legal minds on Law Weekly, only on Channels Television.
Power, they say, is everything, and much of this is concentrated in the National Assembly.
Powers of oversight, power of the purse.
What does the National Assembly do with this power?
And how do their actions affect the people they represent? Find out more on The Gavel.
She's young.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Hard Copy.
She's fresh.
The program will bring you the people behind the news.
She's asking the questions that matter.
Are you corrupt? Don't you think this is immoral?
Of those who matter.
I don't like money.
What does restructuring mean?
You are a thief. Explain it.
Join Maokbe Ugu on Hard Copy, Fridays at 8:30 p.m. only on Channels Television.
If it's current and affects the economy,
the only way government can provide employment is through the manufacturers,
agriculture, and natural resources.
Every part of this country, God has endowed
security or day-to-day living.
We have lights every time.
They always give us lights in the midnight.
Then policies and decisions.
You need to address what is the cause of corruption.
You can get it on Big Story, here on Channels Television.
Welcome back. You are watching The Core, and we are discussing the herder-farmer conflict in Nigeria. I'm taking a tweet from Don MOC, who says, please, what is the fate of those children in Benue that are in IDP camps and not going to school? Is it possible that the federal government should set up a temporary school for them in IDP camps? Quickly, do we have schools in the camps?
No.
Okay. I will come back to you to conclude, but I want to stay with the issue of ranching or no ranching. Dr. Momole, very quickly, because I've literally got a few minutes to close the show, so this is your last remark.
You see, like we always say, the key challenge is the failure to get the professionals to sit down to work and plan a strategy for the transformation of livestock production in Nigeria. Like the minister rightly said, recently by August 2017, we had a conference. And the title of the conference was Transformation of the Livestock Industry. And that's what we need to do.
But if you've already had the conference...
No, I'm just coming. So number one, the blame game. To be very serious, the blame game must stop. The political leadership must be serious. Number three, we bring in the professionals. Number four, there is no one single way to development. There are multiple pathways.
Okay.
And if you come to, let me take you to the pastoralism.
No, I can't. I literally have 2 minutes.
One solution. Two, you have integrated crop livestock systems.
Okay.
Number three, you have coordinated mobility. Number four, you have intensive livestock production systems.
Okay.
All these are options for Nigeria to key into.
Are these options that... you think we should be examining?
Again, people have died on both sides. Yeah. Justice has to be done. Otherwise, we will not forget. I'm sorry. We had a governor telling us something like that the other time. Anyway, one, we don't want to be eating blood beef. I'm sorry, I don't want to eat blood beef. If someone has been killed over beef, I don't want to eat it. So justice, accountability has to happen. Who is buying these weapons? These cattle owners that own it in Nigeria, who are they? Who are these big men? We need to know. That's one. Two, leadership has to be, so leadership has to be great. Two, the humanitarian needs are humongous. 100,000 we hear displaced in Benue. Please, we need help there. Okay. And in other places as well. So we need to move on those things.
Police, how come you're not able to get hold of weapons? What can you do to reduce weapons, which are also a problem?
We do not say we have not gotten hold of weapons. We have so many weapons in our custody because we keep on recovering weapons every day. We have weapons, we recover weapons, we have suspects, arrested
doing
suspects.
The work. I'm giving you the last word. We've literally got 40 seconds. Lagos is about to cut us off on this program. So your final words on this.
One question, where are the weapons coming from? From Libya. The collapse of Gaddafi's regime, AK-47s everywhere.
So our borders are porous.
Absolutely. 5,000 kilometers of empty border. Anybody can walk in and out.
This is an indictment on your government.
Not only the government. There's an ECOWAS treaty that says free movement of goods. Even animals can walk in and out. So these are real. We have a conference in 2 weeks' time between ministers of agriculture and security in West Africa.
Okay. Mr. Minister, thank you so much. We have run, unfortunately, out of time, but as we go away at home, it's important we keep remembering the people that have died on both sides and that they are including security services. And I think this is really the issue. This is what should focus our mind on trying to find a lasting solution, sustainable solution to this problem. Thank you so much to my panel and to the studio guests, and I particularly apologize to those who felt maybe they haven't had enough time to make their point of view. We will try and make another time to carry on this important conversation. Have a very good evening.